Good evening, everybody. This meeting is compliant with the Governor's Executive Order N-29-20 issued on March 17, 2020, allowing for deviation of teleconference rules required by the Brown Act. The purpose of this is to provide the safest environment for staff, council members, and the public while allowing for public participation. The public may address the council using exclusively remote public comment option, and this city council meeting will be an exclusively virtual meeting. Council members and staff will be video conferencing. Staff, please mute your audio and use the raise hand icon for a turn to speak. As for members of the public, the city council agenda materials may be viewed online at www.brisbaneca.org. This meeting is being broadcasted on Channel 27 and live streamed on our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/BrisbaneCA. Remote public comment. The following email and text line will be monitored during the meeting, and the public comments received will be read into the record during oral communications 1 and 2 or during an item. You can email ipadilla@brisbaneca.org and text 628-219-2922. To make public comments for the public hearing, stay tuned for more information.
Thank you. And with that, can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Conway?
Here.
Councilmember Cunningham?
You're muted, Karen.
Yeah. Councilmember Davis?
Here.
Councilmember Lynn?
Here.
And Mayor O'Connell?
Here. Thank you. Will you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
The flag of the
of the
United
United
States of America
States and to
and
the republic for which it stands, one
one
nation, under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and
liberty and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Thank you. Can we have a report out on closed session?
Council met in closed session consistent with the agenda. No formal actions were taken. Staff was given direction.
Thank you. And with that, I would like to get an adoption of the agenda. I would like to make an addition that we close in memory of Mr. George Floyd.
Motion to adopt the agenda with that addition.
Second.
Thank you, and roll call, please.
We already did roll.
Councilmember Conway,
Oh, I thought we did it. Here.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lentz,
Aye.
and Mayor O'Connell.
Aye. Thank you very much. That brings us to oral communications number 1, with an opportunity for members of the public to speak on items that are not on the agenda. City Clerk, do we have any members of the public who have submitted written comments or are in the waiting room to speak?
I have no written comments or oral communication.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to item 5, which is presentations and awards. And it is my pleasure to proclaim June Pride Month, and I have a proclamation to read. And it is the City of Brisbane City Council designating June 2020 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Pride Month. Whereas the City Council of the City of Brisbane recognizes and proclaims the month of June 2020 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer LGBTQ Pride Month throughout the City of Brisbane, and whereas the City of Brisbane joins the County of San Mateo to observe Pride Month with a pride flag raising ceremony to honor the history of the LGBTQ liberation movement and to support the rights of all citizens to experience equality and freedom from discrimination. And whereas the rainbow flag is widely recognized as a symbol of pride, inclusion, and support for social movements that advocate for LGBTQ people in society, and whereas all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, LGBTQ individuals have had immeasurable impact to the culture, civic, and economic success of our country, and whereas the City of Brisbane is committed to supporting visibility, dignity, and equality for LGBTQ people in our diverse community, and whereas while society at large increasingly supports LGBTQ equality, it is essential to acknowledge that the need for education and awareness remains vital in discrimination and prejudice. And whereas this nation was founded on the principle that every individual has infinite dignity and worth, and that the City Council of the City of Brisbane calls upon the people of this municipality to embrace this principle and work to eliminate prejudice everywhere it exists. And whereas celebrating Pride Month influences awareness and provides support and advocacy for San Mateo County's LGBTQ community, and is an opportunity to take action and engage in dialogue to strengthen alliances, build acceptance, and advance equal rights. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Brisbane hereby proclaims the month of June 2020 as Pride Month in support of the LGBTQ community. Be it further resolved that the rainbow flag will be raised for the month of June, recognizing all LGBTQ residents whose influential and lasting contributions to our neighborhoods make the city of Brisbane a vibrant community in which to live, work, and visit. And thank you so much. I wish I had someone to present this lovely proclamation to, but it is my pleasure to declare this Pride Month. Thank you.
Yeah, that was very well written. That was a very, very nice proclamation.
Well done. Thank you. Any comments from council?
Just appropriate, very appropriate. Thank you. So,
Thank you. And I assume that we weren't able to have a in-person flag raising ceremony due to the shelter in place, but the flag will be raised daily along with the state and American flags all over the city of Brisbane. So thank you.
I think they're already up.
They are.
it is, yeah.
So with that, did we, so then we move to the consent calendar.
Make a
And
motion to approve.
Yeah, I'd like to move item F, if I may, Madam Mayor.
item F,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And any other discussions? So I have a motion to approve item B, C, D, E, and G under consent by Councilmember Lentz, and removing item F. Is there a second?
Second.
And all those in favor, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Conway,
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham,
You're muted, Karen.
Sorry, guys, I had a chicken in the background making a lot of noise, so I kept muting myself. Apologies. I'm unmuted. Hi.
Councilmember Davis,
Hi.
Councilmember Lentz,
Aye.
and Mayor O'Connell.
Aye. Thank you very much. And with that, item F, the adopt resolution 2020-42, establishing the 2020 business license tax for liquid storage facilities as to Kinder Morgan, SFPP. Staff report or questions from Councilmember Lentz?
Maybe it might be appropriate for Stuart to give a staff report or Clay, and then I'll ask my question.
Okay, so this is every year we need to set the rate for the Kinder Morgan, the liquid storage tax, business license tax. This is based off of an agreement that we had with Kinder Morgan that we put on the ballot a couple of years ago, or in 2019. It wasn't that far long ago. We then got the amount of liquid storage or liquid that they took for their rack. We multiplied it by the maximum that the tax was allowed under the ordinance, under the vote, and we came up with the dollar amount is shown on the resolution right now is $351,040.
All right. So, Stuart, here's my questions. So we received this over the rack amount of barrels, 5,850,678. So that was for 2019, correct?
Correct.
And then based upon the amount of over the rack barrels, we then determine what they owe us in 2020.
Correct.
So then looking at what they gave us in 2019, it was 365,458 based upon 2018 numbers. So now, pre-COVID-19, 2019 was still a pretty robust year for the economy, maybe even better than 2018. I'm just curious to know why this amount to be paid by Kinder Morgan is less than it was last year.
They're actually having less fuel going over their rack than they have in the previous years. I mean, the 5 million and change is down from previous years. So they are actually having less fuel over the rack, and there's probably a lot of reasons for that. The number of hybrid, the number of cars that are more fuel efficient than before would be one of those reasons. Commute.org is actually working, and people are not commuting as much as they were. So there's a lot of reasons that they may have used less fuel. And you're right. I think this year we're going to see that fuel over the rack drop even more.
Okay, so then in 2018, so 2 years ago, it was 323. So is it based on the same formula, or is there a different formula? And then the year before that was 261. So the last 3 years it increased, and then last year it decreased.
Right. So the formula did change. So according to the agreement that we had with Kinder Morgan, the 261 was the agreed upon amount for that year. The last year we had a set penny per over the rack of barrel that we could charge. This year we increased it to the maximum of 6 1/3 cents because they actually used less. Had less over the rack than would have produced the 400,000 that we were anticipating at an earlier point in time. Fuel consumption is down in this area, is what this is. Either that, or people are getting their fuel from a different source than just this one.
All right. Yeah. Okay, and then the barrels over the rack, that's all fuel, correct? Not just the fuel that goes into our cars, but also that goes out to the airport for the airplanes and whatever other fuels are needed, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then the last question is, how do we verify these numbers from Kinder Morgan? And I apologize, for not, reaching out to you earlier and on the spot, but sorry.
They provide us this information. The best that we can do is ask them for proof of it, and they give us a spreadsheet that shows the type of fuel that they have over the rack. We have no independent method of going out there other than going out every day to check their meters.
Okay, so there's like a beginning meter at the beginning of the year, and then we take the ending meter and verify those. Right.
That is not how we've done it that's not what we did in the first 2 years that we did it this method. So we asked for them the same way that we did it this year. Depending on what the numbers are, we may want to have an outside person verify, a different method for this, and that may be something we look at going forward if the numbers go down more than they have this year.
Yeah. When this originally went before the voters, quite a few years ago, it was anticipated that we'd get up to that $400,000 mark, and
Well, the numbers next year are definitely going to be lower because the last few months, there's been a lot less fuel both in the airport and people driving.
No, absolutely. Right. So, we just need to keep that in mind, Stuart, as we're, as we'll be going through our budget and looking at how do we find ways to generate revenue and be able to, cover the cost for providing services to our community.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve item F, unless anyone else has questions for Stuart.
None.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. And then roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Conway,
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lenz,
Aye.
and Mayor O'Connell.
Aye. Thank you. So that brings us to new business, our budget presentation. Item 1 is the budget and fiscal overview from the city manager. And staff report, please.
Ingrid, was there a PowerPoint to go at this point?
Stuart, are you able to share your screen?
I just have mine. I did not put I have not pulled up Caroline's that Caroline did for Clay. Let me see if I can do that quickly. I'm sorry, Clay.
That's okay.
I was thinking that was going to get done in some fashion.
And that's okay, Stuart. So I think the message really is fairly straightforward. I mean, obviously we're in a very unique moment in time, but in some ways we've been here before. The Great Recession of 12 years ago, from a financial standpoint, has a lot of similarities, and the strategies and tactics that we will pursue, I think, are fairly similar as we did at that particular point in time. We are fortunate through good policy decisions by the City Council over the last decade. We have very good reserves, and that we believe will be good to get us through the next few years. I do want to kind of emphasize that, we're at a point in this event, and I think we all kind of understand that we're probably closer to the beginning of the event than we are to the end of the event. But we are at a point where there is a reopening of the economy. Whether that sticks or not is, a point of discussion. But it is not certain right now just what that's going to mean in terms of our financial revenue base. But that said, our belief is that as the year goes on, and really as we get towards the end of this calendar year, we will have a quarter or two of more reliable data to work with. As we all know, the economy went into a complete, it hit a wall, right, in late May through all of April and into early May. So the numbers and the data from that particular point in time are somewhat useless in terms of trying to predict the future, because that is not really the economy that we're dealing with today. So we have employed some strategies that Stuart will go through with you. We do have a hiring freeze, a selective hiring freeze relative to our general fund. And we have a number of open positions. We have really went through the operating budgets to make sure that that we take out anything that we feel can be deferred without having consequences that would be bad. So we have reduced the operating budgets a couple ways in that by doing both of those. We believe that we will come back to you, as we always do during the middle of the year. But this year we may come back to you in the fall and say, here where we think we are. The areas I think that we're probably most concerned about, frankly, are the hotels. They had a terrible moment in time with the closing down of conventions, tourism, air travel, and just about everything that they feed off of in terms of their businesses. We anticipate they will come back, but we have significantly reduced the amount of revenue that we anticipate. We read something not too long ago that the anticipation in the hotel industry is that it may take 30 months from this fall to fully recover into what we were seeing pre-COVID. So that gets you well into 2023 before you really see them fully back. A lot of the question is how fast things come back and how well they come back. And I think we all expect that there will be some differences. We're fortunate that we don't have a big box and we don't have a lot of retail, but we have and then we have some sales tax that's based in the construction industry, which seems poised to make a fairly quick comeback. We have some sales tax that's related to restaurant industry, which probably is going to be hurting for quite some time. The last thing I want to say is that I think for those of you around during the Great Recession, and you remember that our refrain throughout that period of time, throughout those years, and it was really a 5-year period of time, was that we were going to maintain all our facilities, all our programs, and all our services in some fashion, that we wanted to be able to be in a position to rebuild as quickly as we can. We're approaching this with the same attitude. The only difference is that this event in and of itself shuts down certain facilities, such as the pool and some of the recreation facilities. So there are some facilities that are currently down. There are certain programs thus are down. Our approach in terms of bringing those back will be entirely based on the health and safety of the community and the health and safety of the employees. It's tricky. You can imagine that, we have to kind of rebuild our business operations around a number of services from scratch, basically, and kind of rethink the way we do business in a number of cases. So these things take time. And it's not as easy as just going back to what it was in mid-February or what it was last year. So those are my general kind of comments. Again, we do feel that we're positioned to be able to make it through this economic disruption, but we are obviously going to continue to monitor it very closely. And as always, as things happen, we will be back to the City Council with updates, and if we believe that there is other actions that we need to take, we will certainly be bringing that forward to you. With that, I'll turn it over to Stuart unless there's any questions at this point.
No, I think that was a good fiscal overview of what our programs are and what we are going to be attempting to do. And that would bring us to item 2 in the budget presentation for the 2020-21 and 2021-22 budget presentation from our Deputy City Manager, Administrative Service Manager, Stuart Schillinger. So thank you.
Okay, so I'm hoping that at the moment you're seeing something that says purpose of budget on your screen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
We're seeing you.
I'm seeing you.
You're seeing me?
Yes.
I see the screen.
You're
I
seeing
see.
the screen that says purpose of budget?
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting that some may and some may not. Okay, so let me go through this. So the purpose of the budget, as you know, is to allocate resources to meet the results required by the community as directed through the City Council. Normally, we go through a very long process to provide you information about that. But given the fact that we have changes due to COVID, what we're doing is providing a much higher level budget than we normally do. What you see in your package this year is really just a summary of revenues and then a summary of by department. The reason being, as Clay said, is that a lot of the information is unknown. So we just wanted to get you a feel for where we are today. I will spare you what my fellow finance directors have done for this. We got told that I think San Bruno, Clay, did 200 slides for their budget presentation.
Yeah, something
like that. So I will not do that to you. So what I wanted to do tonight was just go over the revenues that we're getting and give you an idea of what I am projecting at this point in time, and then what some of the issues may be with those revenues that you're seeing. So the secure tax, I'm projecting at $2,775,000. This one, actually, we may do a little bit better than what I projected. I projected basically the same that we saw last year, or that we're going to get this year. The reason being is I'm not quite sure how COVID is going to, what is going to happen. The nice thing about this, though, is that the assessor's office already enrolled the property tax numbers, the assessed values, for next year as of January pre-COVID. So we should not see a major change in the secured tax roll from what we would have anticipated pre-COVID. So what the assessor's office told us is that we may get about $80,000 more in secured tax than I have in my projection. However, we don't know what's going to happen based on appeals, so I'm much more comfortable putting in the secured number that I know for sure that we would get, and not have an increase for this year. The unsecured property tax that we get from items that are not secured to the property. So computer equipment, lab equipment would be considered unsecured property. In the past, we've gotten about $75,000 for the last 2 years. However, I am unsure what COVID is going to do to that. So I'm projecting something that we got 3 years ago at $50,000, just to be on the safe side. Supplemental tax is the amount of property tax that we get based on increases in the assessed value throughout the year. So when somebody sells their property and there's an increase in assessed value, the additional property tax goes into the supplemental tax. The supplemental tax is actually spread throughout the entire county based on what percentage you are of the overall county in property tax. For the past couple of years, it's been $100,000. I don't think we're going to see as many sales in the upcoming year that we have seen in this past year, or if we do see as many sales, we're not going to see the same increase in property value. So again, I'm trying to be conservative and projecting only $50,000. The transfer tax is an additional tax that people pay on when they sell a home. It's a certain dollar amount per $100,000 of sale price. And again, I'm being conservative and having it $50,000. And again, in the past, this number has been closer to $100,000 in the last couple of years. But once again, I don't think we're going to see as many home sales happen in the upcoming year that we have seen in the past. The biggest area of interest for us is the property tax from the RDA area. As you know, with the Sierra Point project, we have seen a lot of growth there. This $577,000 is what we received last year in property tax from the RDA area. If anybody's watching this from home, we received money from the RDA area because of the change in the tax in the law a few years ago that eliminated the RDA, and any growth in the RDA revenue goes back to the underlying taxing district. Based on what I'm seeing from the assessor's office, we may see a fairly large increase in this because of the HCP properties getting built out and other buildings going on down at Sierra Point. So this will be one of those areas that we may be very pleasantly surprised partway through the year when we get our first indication sometime in October, November. The Education Revenue Augmentation Fund, which is known as ERAF, I'm projecting at $260,000. This is a fairly conservative projection, and there's a couple of reasons for this. One is the state has come up with a new method for having the county determine how ERAF should be determined, and which reduces the amount that will go back into the cities and the other underlying taxing districts. For the last couple of years, we've received about $400,000 in this area. However, based on what the state is suggesting, they are asking the county to actually do a retroactive take from the cities and the counties. In our case, that would be about $140,000, and then decrease the amount that would go to the cities and the counties going forward. So hopefully we'll get a little bit more in here, but again, just trying to be conservative. I'm thinking $250,000 would be our base amount. Sales tax, as Clay said, is probably our biggest area that is of concern. And so what I wanted to do here is show you where we get our major sales tax revenues from. And this is for the fourth quarter, which is October through December. So this is truly pre-COVID. Our biggest revenue source is building material wholesale. Within this one, you have Golden State Lumber, you have Norman Wright Mechanical. Both of those are two of our larger sales tax producers, as you can tell. Coming after that, we have the food processing equipment. So companies like Buy-Right and Trimark fall within that one. Furniture and appliance, room and board is one of the big ones that are in the furniture and appliance. We have light industry and we have business services. Looking at this, we're not quite sure how this is going to play out. So I've projected $5 million here. If we were pre-COVID, I would have projected somewhere around 6.2 to 6.3 million. So I'm actually projecting about a 16% decrease in sales tax next year. I think that's a fairly conservative number. The other finance directors in the area are projecting similar kinds of ones. Our sales tax audit firm, Avenue, says that we may get 5.1 million next year versus the 5 million. It's really going to depend on a couple of things. One, how does the construction industry fare? As you can see, that's a major source of revenue for us. What we've heard from Golden State Lumber is that based on the ending of the construction moratorium based on the shelter in place, that they are doing quite well. There was a backlog in their demand and that they're doing well at this point. But as you could imagine, companies like Buy-Right, like Trimark, like Bright and Hensley Equipment Rentals are going to see a decrease. As Clay said, the event industry and the restaurant industry are taking hits. So I'm not quite sure how all that is going to play out. So I'm projecting 5 million. Avenue said 5.1. I'm hoping Avenue is correct. And that will give us a little bit more money that we can deal with at mid-year. The next item is the transient occupancy tax. And this is where I think we're going to have our largest decrease. If we did not have COVID, I'd be projecting 3.2 million. At the moment, I'm projecting 1.6 million. As you see, I wanted to give you as much information as I had up to date. So for February, we received $225,000 for that month in our transient occupancy tax. In March, we received $89,000. We have not seen the numbers come in yet from April, which we should be seeing fairly soon. But even, I mean, this is one of those areas where I think Dr. Morrow is saying that it's not just the idea that there's a shelter in place, but the fact that there is a pandemic worldwide is creating a decrease in the amount of business that people have, and travel is one of those things that is definitely being impacted. I hope we hit the 1.6. I'm hoping that sometime after January or February we'll see some type of return in travel. So the question is, what are we going to do about all of these issues? And as Clay talked about, we're doing the same thing that we've normally done during any normal recession. We're freezing positions that are open. So we're freezing our police officer positions that have been open and our code enforcement officer position that is open at this point in time. We actually don't have any other positions that are open. We are not, we are going to meet the, we've talked with Lisa about this. We do have enough officers to meet the needs of the community. So we're able to do that. We are not creating any new programs for this year, but we're also not decreasing any of our programs this year. So the other thing that we're doing is that we are keeping our recreation facilities closed, but that's really not from a financial perspective. It's from an employee and community health and safety perspective. So, we keep getting phone calls about opening up the tennis court, but the health order very specifically says the only time you can have your tennis courts open is if they're monitored. And what we have found in the past is that when we did have the tennis court open, it became a gathering place. And we don't want that to happen. So we're keeping our tennis courts closed, we're keeping our basketball court closed, we're keeping our skateboard park closed, and we're keeping our pool closed. The pool is truly one of those areas where there's a question about employee and community health issues. If we were to open our pool, we would not be able to open our bathroom and our locker room facility. That's one of those areas that the health district is very clear about that they don't want to see locker rooms open, that they would like to, if you're going to have your pool open, you need it to be well monitored. You need to have not only your lifeguard, but you need somebody else there available for social distancing purposes. That everybody who uses the pool needs to come into the pool area wearing their mask, wear their mask all the way up until the time that they enter the pool, and then put their mask on right after they leave the pool. The concern is not so much that issue, but if and when we would have to do a rescue in the pool, there's no way we can prevent social distancing from our lifeguard and the person that we're trying to rescue. What that means is that we would have the ability to have somebody get infected either through either our lifeguard or the community member who may be carrying COVID. As you know, through everything you've heard, that COVID is one of those illnesses that you may be asymptomatic with. So you may not be showing any signs, and yet you're still able to pass the disease. So through an abundance of caution, we are keeping our pools closed at this point in time. And those are the reasons why we're trying, why we keep our recreation facilities closed. One of the things that we need to think about is what's going to happen in the future when we come out of the COVID incident. One of the big questions is going to be what is going to be the impact on PERS. This is an area that I talked with you before, and this is an area that the grand jury has really emphasized, and they want us to talk about this as we're going through the budget. So PERS projects every year that they're going to get a 7% return on their investment. If you were to ask me on March 25th what I thought the return on their investment was going to be at the height of the sell-off on the stock market, I would have told you my guess would have been somewhere between -5 and -10% return on investment. As you could see, that would have a large impact on what our unfunded liability would be. I looked at their portfolio just yesterday, and they are actually up 5% on their portfolio from where they were June 30th of 2019. So at this point in time, I don't actually know what that impact on our unfunded liability is going to be. Until June 30th happens and they've gone through all of their machinations on coming up with what their rate of return is, we don't know. But what I do know is whatever that rate of return is going to be is going to, in 2 years, have a change in our unfunded liability. And the way that PERS does it is that they have a 5-year ramp up on their unfunded liability and then a 15-year flat charge. And as I said, so if they only earn 5% in this year versus their 7%, we would see a change of about $170,000 a year for those out years of the 15 years. But I don't know what that's going to be, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes. Also, everybody's heard that the Democrats have passed a bill that should provide and could provide cities some federal assistance. According to Jackie Spear's office, that could be as much as $2.2 million over the next 2 years. My fingers are crossed that that happens. I'm not sure exactly how much of that would happen, but if it does, that would be great. And then, as Clay said, we are going to monitor our revenues over the next, very closely over the next 6 to 12 months to determine what exactly is happening. So property tax, I'll get some indication in October and November when they send out the city's assessed value, but we don't really see our first payment until December in property tax. Sales tax has a very long lag to it. I will not see the revenue from July through September until November, and I will not see the revenue from October through December until February. Without getting those two pieces of information, it's going to be very hard to know exactly how much money we're going to be getting out of sales tax. Transient occupancy tax is a 1 month lag, so it's a little bit easier to track. and we'll be tracking that very closely throughout the year. So to summarize everything that I said is, so for our revenues, which is a combination of our revenues and our transfers in, I'm expecting for 2021, $19,037,000. Our expenditures, I'm expecting about $21.5 million, which should leave us with a fund balance of something around $6 million at the end of fiscal year 2021. Based on my projections for, without any real changes to them happening in 21, 22, our revenues will go up slightly. Our expenditures will go up slightly, and our fund balance will go down to about $3.7 million. As I said in the staff report, that would still leave us some money left in our recession reserve and our emergency reserve, and still give us fully funding of our ongoing 5% revenues and 5% expenditure reserve. So we're still doing fairly well. That during this period of time, we're able to use our reserves to wait to see what indications we have, how our revenues are doing before we have to make any long-term changes to the services that we provide to the community. And I have a graph showing that to some extent. So what I've done is right here is showing what the general fund balance would be under various scenarios. So pre-COVID, this is where I would expect us to be. And I would expect our general fund balance in 21-22 to be about a little bit over $8 million. Based on my current projections in the budget, as you can see, I'm projecting something under $4 million. But I have really little understanding about a lot of revenues that may happen. So if we have just some basic growth, so if we get some money coming out of the building going on in 0 Point, and we get some money coming out of Canada, because in my COVID-19 projections, I don't have any cannabis projected revenue. So we had talked about potentially getting $300,000 in business license tax from Canada, so that still isn't known yet because we haven't gotten enough data. We would be a little bit better off. And if we get a slight recovery above and beyond just that basic growth in property tax and that basic cannabis number, but we got a little bit of recovery in TOT, a little bit better recovery in sales tax, we would feel something a little bit nicer, a little bit higher. If I start using Avenue and the assessor's numbers, we'd start getting closer to just under $6 million. And if we get the federal aid, we'd be just at about $8 million. So we would not be that far off from what our baseline number was. And that's also, looking at not really using not looking at further growth that's happening on HTP as additional development is happening. Phase 3 is one of those other projects that are happening. There's additional growth going on the HTP project. So there's a lot of positive news that we as a city have. And, my message tonight is we have enough in reserve. The City Council has done a remarkable job over the years in ensuring that we have the ability to weather a recession. We knew that a recession was going to happen. We didn't know when it was going to happen, but we put money aside for it. And we have that ability to weather the recession, to make a determination whether there is a permanent change in our situation or whether it's a temporary change in our situation. And we also have a number of areas that we're growing in that other cities are not. We're having nice development out on 0 Point. We have we have the cannabis industry that may or may not grow quicker than we thought. So for all those reasons, the message from me tonight to you is, let's look at using our reserves. We'll report back to you as we get more information on our revenues, and we will do everything we can to ensure that we are not spending more in expenditures than we absolutely need to provide the level of service that our community has come to expect. And that is my presentation on the budget, much less than the 200 slides that Sen Gorno did.
Thank you, Stuart. I think that was very comprehensive. Does any members of the Council have any questions for Stuart?
Madam Mayor, actually, Stuart answered my question. Is on the property tax, and that was already answered when he did his presentation. So, yeah, we knew it was going to be kind of interesting. So, but I think we'll fare well through this. I know we're in a lot better position than some of our fellow cities are.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Stuart and Clay. In regards to the property taxes, and I apologize if I didn't hear it during your presentation, but on the county conference calls, they were talking about delaying property tax payments. You still have to pay it, but it's giving you an extension. Would those extensions have any impact on our revenue streams?
They actually would not. So we are under the teeter plan in this county, which means that the county needs to provide the revenue to the city that they are owed for the property tax once it's assessed. It doesn't say that it's when it's collected. So come December, they will give us 100% of what they would have owed us for December, whether they collected the money or not. So every year, there's a number of people and properties that do not pay on time and that pay penalty for not paying on time. We don't collect any of the penalty because we get 100% of what's owed to us in December. And then the county is responsible for following up with people, getting the property tax, getting any penalties. So if there is a delay in when people pay the property tax, I had the conversation with the controller. At this point in time, because we're on the teeter plan, the controller still anticipates paying us 100% of what they would owe us in December.
Okay, and are all cities and school districts on the teeter program?
In San Mateo County, yes. Okay,
no, that's good news to hear. So you talked about, the former RDA, specifically, Sierra Point. So we have HCP doing their projects, and Clay, maybe you can chime in on this one. Have there been any signs from HCP about slowing down their development? It seems like they want to continue to move forward. I guess they already have agreements and they want to knock out constructing their buildings.
Stuart, did you want to try to?
I mean, everything that we're seeing is that they are continuing moving forward. We're not seeing any delay in what they're doing. I know John probably has a better handle for future construction, but if you look, they are finishing all their buildings that they're working on, and that is one of the places where I go and run, and you can see them continuing to do their work. And I know, Clay, that during the time when the construction was being held up, that was one of the construction sites that kept on trying to figure out how they could actually do their work. So yeah. I don't think that is an area where we're seeing any kind of a slowdown. I mean, I think if we're going to see it, it will become in any remodels that you might see happening for the future, but I don't see it happening in the buildings that are being currently constructed. And even with the buildings that are currently constructed, what you're seeing is the shell of the building. You're not seeing the interior. So we're going to see another increase in property tax when the interior of the buildings are completed. If you look at something like how much it costs to to finish up the I don't build it. I don't remember the one that you guys approved the redesign for of the existing building out on the marina, but that was in the multiple tens of millions of dollars to do the remodel. I mean, so that kind of remodel creates a 1% value for us. So a $50 million remodel creates $500,000 in property taxes, of which we get 20%.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I mean, I think we are going to see an increase in the from RDA over the next 2 to 3 years beyond what we are seeing right now in our numbers.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Clay.
Yeah, I would agree with Stuart. I feel pretty confident about the HCP project being finished. I think where we may see a delay is in the phase 3 project, not in the ground at all. So it's an easier decision for them to just hold off. I haven't heard anything to that effect at this point in time, but given everything that's going on in the market, I wouldn't be terribly surprised if they're delayed.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, HEP is moving forward. It seems like they already have tenants in mind for phase 3.
They're leased. I don't know if they're entirely leased up, but they do have tenants that they're in contract with.
Mm-hmm. Okay, no, that's great. And then, so Stuart, like when you're putting together your budget, you're laying out, the expenditures, but, our various departments, they might not spend all that money, right? I mean, it's there, our department has to use the money wisely. There could be more left over in the pot, so to speak, by just being smart with how the money is spent, correct?
Correct. So this is one of those areas that, every year I come back to, and there are, it goes both ways during a budget year. Doing a 2-year budget, you will often see a little bit more unknown in the second year than in the first year. So the 21-22 budget, you might see a little bit more in expenditures than we anticipate, because there may be some projects that come before City Council that we weren't anticipating. There may be some increases that we weren't anticipating. But in 2021, what I would anticipate is that the departments are going to be saving money. Not only do the department heads know that we're in a recession, all the employees know that we're in a recession. And they're doing, they come to me and they talk about what they're doing and how they can save money as an employee. And also, when I come up with budget projections for employees, I use top of the salary range for all of our employees. Not all of our employees are at the top of their salary range, and if any of the employees find work in another city or retire, we will have some level of salary savings throughout the year. But in order to, the worst thing that as a fire inspector, for me, the worst thing I think I can come to you with is come in December and say, the budget is worse than I thought it was going to be. And we need to make a change in December in a negative way, and we need to reduce our expenditures in December, as opposed to coming as I normally do in February and saying, okay, here's where we are in the budget. We are slightly better off. Here's a recommendation on how we can use the additional money. And that's where we've come up with money for capital improvement projects in the past, and how we have put more money aside for our reserves and for our trust fund. So yes, I think we might be a little bit better off in expenditures, but I would never want to go into the budget year expecting to be better off than I am in expenditures.
Okay. No, well said. Yeah.
Just anecdotally, we got Stuart and I were approached by one of the department heads this week with a project that they said that they thought that they could defer without creating any safety issues. And I think, if I remember, Stuart, that was $70,000 expense that we won't be making. So I think the department heads are all looking at ways in which they can be cost conscious and play their role in getting us through the next year and a half, whatever the duration of this event is.
Right. And, this is one of those areas where I've talked to the city council before about how we budget. We budget based on what the department heads anticipate that they need to spend. And if they don't spend it, I don't go back the next year and say, since you didn't spend money, we're going to reduce your budget. This is a very classic finance budget technique. So if somebody says that I need $100,000 for these expenses, and they end up spending $80,000, what is the classic technique from finance and budget people is to say, okay, next year we're only going to allocate you $80,000. And it's remarkable that if somebody asks, given that circumstance, if somebody asks for $100,000, the amount of time that they spend $98,000 or $99,000 of it, whether they needed all of it or not. So we actually, because of the way that we budget and that we treat our department heads as responsible adults, they act like responsible adults, and they spend what they need, and they know that if they need more, they can come back to the city council and to the city manager and say, you know, I slightly underestimated this, we need slightly more, or I slightly overestimated it and we needed less.
Yeah, I remember you saying that in the past, Stuart, and that is just, you know, I mean, that's the way an organization should be run, right? Built on trust and respect. You know, during the last recession, right, the Great Recession, I believe all of the department heads who were, you know, part of the city staff back then are in their current positions today. Am I right? All the department heads?
Correct.
All right. And so, and I guess, you know, I guess recreation is almost a department head type position. That'd be the only.
To me.
Yeah.
But not quite yet.
Yeah. So, yeah, and all of them, you know, were very, very responsible and prudent with how they manage their budgets. And, yeah, I'm sure it'll be the same, dealing with this recession as well. So.
Right. I mean, I think the department heads and the staff recognize the benefit of the reserves that we have. You know, I am sure that as council members, you're beginning to hear of other cities that are looking at doing cuts in staffing or requiring furlough days, or, you know, looking for takeaways in their contracts. But because we've been able to put money aside in the reserves, we're able to hold the trust of our employees. And they recognize that, you know, having those reserves is beneficial for the employees as well as the community. And, you know, that will be one of the conversations that as we go through future contracts that I'll remind them of.
Yes.
That we need to rebuild our reserves. In my staff report, I talk about that, is rebuilding our reserves, you know, putting more money into the trust fund to pay for future costs. This is not, you know, the challenge is that this year and next year may not be the year to do that, because you know, this is the time that you've saved money for, to ensure that we're able to continue to provide services to the community. And then when we come out of this, we'll work with our employees, work with the department heads, and work with council to rebuild those reserves as fast as we can, because we know we're going to be in this situation again.
All right. And the last question, are you expecting to come back before the council sometime this year with a financial update, like say in the fall?
My hope too is, as I showed, you know, we will not have a lot of information to bring back to you, because our sales tax we're not going to know until November. We're not going to really know our property tax for sure until the November time frame. The best one that we're going to get better information on is our hotel tax between now and October. I'm not quite sure how much that's going to really improve. We're probably going to see more of that happen hopefully after January, February, because fingers crossed we'll see some improvement in the pandemic by then. I mean, they were talking, you know, being a year out back in March, so hopefully maybe sometime in the second half of our fiscal year. But what I will probably do is the same thing that I did during the last recession, which was provide updates to the city council on either a monthly or every 2-month basis as to where we are in our revenues and expenditures in the different funds that we have, so that way you're aware of what's going on. And I'll give a verbal or a written explanation as to, you know, what the differences that we're seeing from what we had projected.
All right, thank you. That's it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So this was the budget presentation. We're going to move on to item I, which is a little out of order, but it's to consider approval of resolution 2020-44, adopting a resolution of intent and introducing Ordinance 654 to amend the contract between the Board of Administration of the California Public Employees Retirement System, CalPERS, and the City of Brisbane to implement the cost share of employee contribution in accordance with Section 20516 of the California Code for Classic Member Employees, represented by the International Association of Firefighters Local 2400 AFL-CIO. And I believe that would be a staff report.
Yeah, so this is just following up from the contracts that were approved back in 2019. One of the items in it was where the classic firefighters would pick up a portion of the city's employer portion of PERS, and what was agreed to would be 1% a year up to 3% over the contract. So they're going to have gone from paying as an employee 9% to 12%, which will reduce the amount of employer PERS that we will need to pay during that time period. In order to do that, we need to have the resolution approved by the City Council. We then need to have the ordinance introduced by the City Council. After that, the firefighters will need to vote again to approve this. They've already voted once when they approved the contract, but they need to vote again to approve for this, and that will have to be on a PERS ballot. And we are working with the firefighters to try and get that done as quickly as we can, so that way we can hopefully bring the second reading of the ordinance back to the City Council at their June 18th meeting, at which point we would have a period of time then to implement this agreement, this portion of the agreement. But what this is doing is saying that the employees will be picking up a portion of the city's PERS.
So is this item, could it be one approval to approve both the resolution 2020-44 and introducing an ordinance, or do we need two separate motions for that?
I think PERS would be perfectly fine if you do one motion, as long as you do have the two. We do show the two separate, the resolution and the ordinance as separate items. So as long as as long as you approve the resolution and do the first reading of the ordinance, I believe that would be fine, unless, Tom, you have a different opinion. They can do this all in one motion.
You're muted, Tom. Tom, you're muted. You're muted again.
Sorry about that. It's exactly what Stuart said. It can be done in a single motion, but we do need the reading of the ordinance.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2020-44, adopting a resolution of intent, and also included in that motion is to introduce ordinance number 654, amending the contract between the Board of Administration of the CalPERS and the City of Brisbane.
Second.
And all those in favor, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Conway.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Lentz.
Aye.
And Mayor O'Connell.
Aye. Thank you. That brings us to item 8, which is a public hearing to consider adoption of resolutions to approve the budget for fiscal year 2020-21 and 2021-22. There's two separate portions of that. And is there a staff report, please?
This is just what you need to do in order to adopt the budget for the upcoming years. One of the resolutions is for the city. The other resolution is for the GVMID.
Okay. And
you already heard my full presentation, unless you want to hear it all again.
No, I think we're good. Are there any members of the council that would like to ask any questions of staff?
Make sure I'm not muted again. My only question is if we're going to make a motion to approve Measure J, is it J and K? I mean, how do we make this motion to approve this?
This would be two separate resolutions, I believe, because
Right.
we need to do it for the city and also for Guadalupe Valley Municipal Improvement District. But we also, it's a public hearing, so we will be asking for comments. I believe we can see if there's any comments for both items and then do separate approvals for both items. And then K would be a separate item.
Okay, thank you.
So, to the city clerk, do we have any members of the public who have submitted written communications or are on the line to speak on this item?
I have not received any written comments or text, as well as no one's in line to do oral comments.
Okay, so I guess first of that, I should have said that I was opening the public hearing. And do I need a motion to do that?
No.
No.
Just to close.
Okay, then I will make a motion to close the public hearing. All those in favor, roll call, please.
Do we have a motion and a second? Huh?
I seconded.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, was there a motion? I did not hear a motion.
The mayor made a motion, I thought.
No, I asked for a motion.
Oh, it sounded like you made it. Okay, then I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Thank you. And with that, I'd accept a motion to adopt resolution 2020-23, adopting the annual budget for
Do
fiscal
we have
year.
to vote motion to close the public hearing first?
We did.
We didn't do the vote.
Here, vote.
Oh,
I'll do
I'm
the oral roll call. Councilmember Conway,
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lentz,
Aye.
and Mayor O'Connell.
Aye. Thank you. Now,
I will make the motion to adopt item J, consider the adoption of resolution to approve the budget for fiscal year 2020, 2021, and 21-22. Do we need to read 1 and 2?
That's resolution for 2020-23, right, Karen?
Adopt resolution number 2020-23, adopting the annual budget for fiscal year 2020, 2021, and fiscal year 2021 and 2022, and making the appropriations for the amounts budgeted.
second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call?
That's fine.
Councilmember Conway,
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lentz,
Aye.
and Mayor O'Connell.
Aye. Thank you. And then do I have a motion to adopt item 2, the Guadalupe Valley Municipal Improvement District resolution?
I'll make that motion to adopt Guadalupe Valley Municipal Improvement District Resolution number GVMID 2020-01, adopting the annual budget for fiscal year 2020 to 2021 and fiscal year 2021 to 2022, and making appropriations for the amounts budgeted.
Thank you.
Second.
And then a roll call approval vote?
Board Member Conway,
Aye.
Board Member Cunningham,
Aye.
Board Member Davis,
Aye.
Board Member Lentz,
Aye.
and Chair O'Connell.
Aye. Thank you. Moving on to item K, which is to consider adoption of resolution 2020-24, adopting a master fee schedule. Staff report, please.
Sure. So back in 2002, the City Council approved target recovery percentages, and we adopted a fee schedule based on those. Since that time, we have increased our fees based on inflation year after year. The city's staff at this point, recognizing the issues that we're facing with COVID, is actually recommending not increasing fees this year. Normally we would have increased with inflation, which would have been a 2.9% increase. But we recognize that having to pay additional money for services, for recreation services in the future, or for a number of other items that the city provides may be a bigger hardship on people. So the staff this year is recommending a 0% increase for the fees. This will probably be about $16,000 to $20,000 less in revenues than we would normally receive in this. 20 to 30,000 less in revenues than we would normally receive. But given the economic times, we believe this is a good policy decision to make, with very little impact on the revenues for the city.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff on this item?
I have none.
Okay. And with that, I'll open the public hearing. Are there any members of the public who are in line or have sent written statements on this item?
I have not received any written correspondence, and no members of the public wish to make oral comments.
So could I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. I think you chimed in at the same time. Roll call vote on closing the public hearing.
Councilmember Conway,
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lentz,
Aye.
and Mayor O'Connell.
Aye. Thank you. And do I have a motion to adopt resolution 2020-24 adopting a master fee schedule?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Conway,
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lentz,
Aye.
and Mayor O'Connell.
Aye. Thank you. So that brings us to staff reports, and we have the city manager's report on upcoming activities.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This one I do know I've got a PowerPoint for it, so we'll load that up and go to the first slide. There we go. So our Recreation Department has been working on a variety of different things throughout this event to bring the community together and to send out positive messages. And this past week, they put together these two posters, Love is Love and Black Lives Matter. You can see at the top of them, that's the City of Stars logo. And these will be placed at different places around town in the next few weeks and few months. The next one. And as you can see, we placed two of them. Well, you're moving faster than I can talk. We had placed a couple of them at the community park, and there we go. And those were placed there this afternoon, and will stay there for a while. Go to the next one. We did a signboard posting today for George Floyd, 1974-2020. To my recollection, this is the first time we've ever recognized somebody who didn't have a direct Brisbane connection, but was appropriate to do given what is going on. And we've also had over the past week a number of I guess impromptu postings, and we have let those stay up so that people can express themselves and communicate in a way that is meaningful. Moving on, so on this Saturday, we'll begin the curbside pickup for the Brisbane Library. You can go on to the San Mateo County Library.org site to get information about how you can reserve items. There will be done a couple times a week, or actually 3 times a week. This Saturday will be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then they will be doing this on Tuesdays from 3 to 7 and Thursdays also from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So this is kind of a fun one. The Junior Giants, nonprofit of the Major League Baseball team, are doing a virtual baseball camp this summer. There'll be a summer season starting week of June 8th and June 29th to June 29th, and a second camp from July 6th through July 27th. And you can find information to sign up, I believe, at juniorgiantsathome.org is where the sign up is on that. I've been trying to work with them to see if we can get a Senior Giants program that we could participate in this summer. So far, they haven't been. Just to let you know that the free COVID testing is now back in Daly City. It'll be the next time will be on June 17th. And you can go online at Project Baseline to sign up for that. The short-term rental issue, STR issue, will be a public hearing that will be on your next City Council agenda. The public will be able to dial in for the public hearing and participate. Although we say we'll have the meeting agenda out 72 hours prior, that's our legal obligation, but we always get it out before that. So it'll probably be out the Friday before the June 18th meeting. And just to, I think we mentioned this past Monday, we opened up City Hall from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. We have various protocols for people for their safety and the staff safety around temperature taking and cleaning of shoes and wearing of masks. And we had a few people on Monday, and we had a few people more today. So we will continue to operate in that fashion. With that said, unless there's any questions, what I've got both the police chief and the city attorney wanted to make some updates for you. Chief Macias wants to speak a little bit with regards to an event that will be happening here on Saturday. And the police department has been working with the event organizer and wants to give you an overview of how that is going.
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. We do have scheduled a peaceful gathering for George Floyd that's organized by one of our local residents, and that will be this coming Saturday, the 6th. And the hour, it will be at our community park, and it'll be from 7:30 to 8 p.m. We are having a road closure, a hard closure on San Francisco Street from San Bruno Avenue to Plumas. And this will allow for plenty of space for those attending to have and be able to maintain their 6-foot distancing in regards to our health officers' requirements. The closure will begin at 6:30 p.m. and the closure will reopen, the road will reopen at 8:30 p.m. I wanted to take this time to assure our community and all those attending the gathering on Saturday that our priority is safety for everyone attending and our community. I will have my entire department there working that evening. There'll be marked and unmarked cars watching the perimeter in order to monitor the traffic coming in and around the event and to identify and address any potential threat. Myself and Commander Garcia, you'll see us attending the gathering, and we will be there to support and also available to identify and address any issues within the crowd. We have initiated a county-wide Phase 1 tackler, which puts all of the cities within San Mateo County on notice of this event and ready to respond to Brisbane should we need any assistance in any way. But we do plan for a peaceful gathering. Are there any questions from council?
No, but I want to thank you, Chief Macias, for having your officers at the ready and knowing that we will be on alert and well protected and that we don't expect any problems. So that's very nice. Thank you.
Yeah, just so you know, Chief, I plan on being there with my grandkids. So.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And if I may, Madam Mayor, Chief Macias, I read your letter to the community this afternoon, and it was just so heartfelt and just right on point in regards to what the Black Lives Matters movement is really about. And it's about creating social equity and coming together as humanity should. And so just really proud of the way that our police department has been managed under your helm, and our officers are doing a great job and just being really in tune with what's happening in our community, and how you created diversity in the department, right? I mean, you look around and you see most departments, they're white officers, and there's nothing wrong, of course, with white officers, but it's nice to see that our department really walks the walk in regards to diversity, and that's just a really nice example to see out there. And so just thank you for all that you do for our community and the people that you serve with.
Thank you.
I just want to add something as well. I am really thankful that city staff made those posters and that we proclaim that on the signboard. I know it's not traditional, but I think it's really important as a community that we take a stance on the issue. Black Lives Matter is not controversial. It's not political. It's humanitarian. And it should be something that's really easy to say. I think it's something that everyone should proclaim. And I'm really happy that our city is taking that stance and making it well known in our community. All Black Lives Matter. All gay people, lesbian, queer, transgender people matter. And I'm so happy to see that we have the pride flag up again this year, that we're going to be hosting a peaceful vigil. I think that's really what the movement is all about, just like what Cliff said. But at the same time, I think that nobody is perfect. And staff and I had a conversation today, along with Councilmember Cliff Lentz, where we discussed that we have an ongoing responsibility to make sure that while we have such a great culture developed within City Hall, within our police department, that we ensure that future generations also exhibit those same values. And so that requires ongoing auditing, determining where we can improve, and developing even further programs to ensure that Black people and other people of color feel welcome within all of our departments. And I have asked staff to outline all the things that we currently do to make sure that we are a welcoming place free from racism. We are completely inclusive. So I'm happy to say that staff will be putting that together. And I know that Chief Macias also will be putting together all of the ways in which the department is ensuring that we maintain that culture going forward. And of course, I think it's also about evaluating where our areas of improvement are, and being open that maybe we've been doing a great job, but there might be areas in which we can even do better. And so I'm glad to see that there's that commitment there in order to ensure that we're building that culture. So thank you.
That was very well said. Thank you.
So if there's any other questions for the chief, I know City Attorney Tom McMorrow had a couple of updates he wanted to provide you.
Evening. I was asked to give an update on the state budget. We'll have a longer update on the meeting of the 18th because at that point we will have an adopted budget, likely the final budget. It looks like it's shaping up that way. And also to address the housing package that you all received a memo about, but I was asked to put it on the record for the public. On the budget, I'll read about the housing package. On the budget, my computer is going in and out, but here's basically what I would share. The governor put together a budget proposal in January that you all know was premised upon roughly a $6 to $7 billion surplus for the 2021 fiscal year, which begins July 1. The COVID hit at a time actually when they were talking about it being a surplus above $7 billion. And what the governor's proposal did with those numbers is he had the highest spend budget in California history. But he also was paying down all sorts of obligations that have been held over years. So that's part of the spending. COVID hit. We had a record $21 billion, some accounting $24 billion surplus that was in reserve funds, rainy day fund, and 2 other funds. That money was gone within 2 weeks. To give you a sense of how quickly the economy shut down. We are now at roughly a $56 billion deficit. The entire swing comes out to somewhere around $60 billion. The math sounds higher, but it's not quite that. Due to that, the governor had a choice, and the legislature had a choice. Under California's Constitution, the budget has to be balanced. And while there are accounting things and other things that go on periodically, it's never that far from truly balanced. Part of the debate was under Jerry Brown, once the recession recovery had been started, he did not want the accounting gimmick. So part of the debate was, do I change a date on a check from June 31 of one fiscal year and move it into the next one of July 1? Or do we not do those things under our new governor, Governor Newsom? Governor Newsom, for the most part, rejected those kind of things, continuing what Governor Brown did in his second term. And he put forward a budget that did 3 things. It was balanced, based primarily on cuts, and it assumed about a $14 billion financial aid package from the federal government against estimates of as high as $50 billion coming into the state when eventually the next financial aid bill passes Congress. It's everybody's bet when, but the assumption is there's going to be at least $30 billion for California, and the governor was saying, I'll assume that we get 50% of that. And he balanced the budget up to that $14 billion. The third thing that he did is he said, if we get the $14 billion, then I will restore these programs. He identified what he would restore. So it was the opposite of what prior governors had done. He cut, and he said, if we get the money from the feds, we'll put this $14 billion in spending back. So that's where we were. That was not well received by the legislature. And I'll come back to the relevance of the city. The legislature also did something historic. They just announced in the last 2 days that the Senate budget, which is based on a couple hearings, no votes by the Senate, is going to be the budget of the legislature. In effect, they issued a joint communication. It's not a press release. They did a variety of things to meet constitutional and parliamentary standards. And that, in effect, a budget that was debated briefly for 2 days is now the legislature's budget opposite the governor. Why does that matter? Why it matters is the legislature's budget goes back. It says we're not going to cut anything until we know we're not going to have the money. So there is a wide gap between what the governor's doing and what the legislature's doing. So despite roughly 75% control of the legislature and every statewide office, there's going to possibly be a fight over the budget. That matters to the people of Brisbane and the city because one of the hostages in this fight is the money, various sums of money that roll to the city. But the main point is, when will the city receive its entitlement through tax payments and other things? And it's not clear because under the governor's budget, the legislature will have to come back after the July 15th taxes are collected, have an assessment of how much money, a projection of how much money was collected, and reallocate. So if you're Stewart, you're blind. How do I budget off of that? Under the legislature's budget, as best anybody can tell, they don't have language on this yet, it's the opposite. We'll assume the cities get everything they need, and we'll go back and take something away later on. So it's to let you know that as you adopt tonight, and as Stewart reported, that the city would check in periodically and see how things were going. A big part of how things are going will be, where does the state budget come out? When does federal assistance come? At what level? There will be some no matter what, just formulaically, but at what level? And also, what do tax receipts look like on July 15th? So lots of moving targets on the state budget, nothing even close to what people thought even a week ago, because everybody's focused on Gavin Newsom's budget proposal. So things are up in the air. We should know on the 18th, at least be able to project with some confidence when the city will receive the money it's entitled to. Before I go to the housing, which is a much simpler equation, does anybody have any questions about the budget process?
No.
On housing, as you will recall, we had a report on this. Senator Wiener from San Francisco, Democrat of San Francisco, introduced Senate Bill 50, very controversial measure earlier this year. The bill was defeated before it left the Senate, somewhat unusual. But at that time, the Senate President Pro Tem, Tony Atkins of San Diego, announced that there would be a Senate Democratic housing package. That package was announced a couple of weeks ago. I think the city will be pleased with the upshot of it. It moves away from the SB 50 and some of the other things in our directive and goes back into a more incentive-focused housing policy. And it's essentially 5 bills. There's a 6th bill that's been added, but I'm just going to tell you about the 5 because this is what the Senate describes as its package. Senator Wiener has SB 902. You have this in a memo. This would allow local governments to pass ordinances that forego CEQA review for projects with up to 10 units of housing. You're going to hear a lot of up to smaller numbers than you used to hear. So very focused on locals and infill projects, backyard projects, things like that. The hook on that CEQA relief is the small project in a jobs-rich or transit-rich area. As you know, those are very interesting phrases given where Brisbane is located and how they're measured. You're both jobs-rich and transit-rich under the definition as it's currently constituted in this bill. Senator Atkins has SB 995. It's a streamlined review of affordable housing projects. It's exactly what I just described for Senator Wiener, except it's easier. If you commit to essentially a 2/3 residential package for development, you can have a mixed use. But if you agree to the 15% affordable and you agree to something new, 2/3 residential, you get the benefits of both credits from the state financially and an expedited CEQA review process. Under Senator Skinner, SB 1085, she has a density bonus incentive. This is again akin to what you heard last year, but what's different is the density bonus is tied to very low and low income. There's a small piece for moderate income, so it's far less broad than it was last year. It applies to units that are 20% student housing, so it's focusing on campus areas and along transit corridors. And it requires that rental units stay within the classification of low mod for the duration. Now, they haven't defined that. I'm assuming it'll be something like one cycle, 8 years or 10 years. It's all done without financial incentives from the state. It's all based on you get those density incentives. You can put more units into a space that would normally take less. And then we have Senator Atkins again. This is, you know about this one. This is the bill that actually says on duplex construction, we're going to, notwithstanding local zoning, we're going to do anything we can as a state to say that the policy should allow duplex construction on single family lots, etc. They can't do it without a lot more policy making to go on. You will be involved in that if you want to be. But it states what they've talked about for 2 years about duplexes. It does not get into so-called granny flats. That's that sixth bill that I mentioned that we won't go into tonight. And then the last one is housing and commercial zones. This one will sound very familiar. SB 1385 by Caballero. This is the only one that really sounds like last year. Streamlined ministerial approval of housing projects on land zoned for office or retail commercial use if the site is vacant and determined to be underutilized for 3 years and meets existing by right standards. So to be able to go in and build housing in this area zoned for office retail would be more difficult than proposed last year, but it's still a notion of using statewide policy to impact the interpretation of local zoning. The rest of it is about site density and incentives. It's exactly what you're used to. The only one that jumped out at me as we reviewed them earlier in the full bill package was the last one, housing and commercial zone. Like so many, these have only been heard in a single policy committee in the Senate. They'll have to go through, I believe all 5 of them have to go through the fiscal process, which means another hearing. Then they'll have to go to the floor, they'll pass off the Senate floor, and then the real debate will begin in the Assembly. So likely to have a housing package. Not hearing a lot of criticism of this, but the elements that are going to be controversial don't have a lot of definition yet, and we'll report back when they do.
All right. Yeah, Madam Mayor, I just have a quick question for Tom. So, Tom, on that streamlining bill, the land we're talking about is city-owned land, correct? Not.
Yeah. Okay. You're talking about the last streamlining bill.
Yes, the last one.
Okay. It does not have to be. No, they're using if the site is underutilized, so it does not have to be city land, but that'll end up being a compromise on assembly. I don't know what the language will be, Councilman Lentz, but there'll be more definition on it by the time it gets out of the assembly.
Okay. All right.
And none of us are hearing anything that suggests these bills will not get together or do so. I mean, these are such a departure from recent years. I can't see how they won't get to it.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that brings us to Mayor and Council matters, countywide assignments and subcommittee reports. I have several, but if any other council members would like to report out on their subcommittee meetings.
I had a public art subcommittee meeting and happy to report after many months we finally came to an agreement on the mural for the skate park, and that's it.
Okay. Councilmember Lentz.
Well, you know, Madison and I meet every week in regards to the COVID-19 subcommittee. But one of the things that we talked about was, making sure that we kept social distancing and wearing masks for our upcoming event on Saturday night and honoring Mr. Floyd. Yeah. Anything else you want to add there, Madison? I mean, I know that there's an update from the San Mateo County Health Inspector in regards to loosening restrictions. Looks like there's going to be outdoor dining. That's going to happen, I think, after Saturday night. Clay, if you can.
The 6th.
Is it the 6th?
That's what my understanding.
Okay, so
it's permitted. I don't know exactly the details.
Yeah, we for your knowledge, we've been working with Vanessa down at 7 Mile House for a limited sort of outdoor dining. It's a pretty contained space, but I think we're going to be able to help her a little bit. We haven't had.
Someone had asked about closing the parking lot or portions of the parking lot at the village, so that those businesses could have outdoor dining. And I think that might be something worth looking into.
Yeah, I mean, so, you got private property, you got city property. So in that case, it's a private property thing. We could certainly talk with her. I think the challenge will be ingress and egress. But it might be a way to deal with that.
People had also asked if there is a way to close down visitation. I don't know. That seems a little bit more challenging, but
yeah, that's a tough one. And even the sidewalks on visitation are a real tough one.
Yeah. So I don't know, but it's good that people are trying to find solutions. The other thing that I didn't mention about 5 minutes ago, when we were talking about Black Lives Matter, is that Cliff and I had asked staff to look at writing a resolution relative to Black Lives Matter and the city's just a formalized statement about how Black Lives Matter are really important to us. And so I think that that's something that is going to be coming forward next council meeting. I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit more, Clay.
Yeah, we'll be working on something to bring forward. I think we're also going to have a resolution on the Juneteenth celebration also. So we'll have that, and then we'll do another resolution probably around issues around diversity and inclusion. But we'll work on that and get something to you at the June 18th meeting.
Great.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, so I think that's it.
I'm hearing gunfire right now.
I don't think it's gunfire, but
It's fireworks. I can see them.
Oh,
They're out by the lagoon.
Did the Giants hit a home run, Cliff?
I haven't even been following baseball.
It's not going on.
Is that going on?
Okay, so I have a couple subcommittee reports to give. I attended an airport land use committee meeting, and the big takeaway was we were asked to declare a new general plan for Genentech as consistent with airport use. We did so, and just as an FYI, Genentech, their campus in South San Francisco, they have applied to change their land use plan to basically double their existing density to about 10 million square feet. So that looks like it is going to be going through the South San Francisco Planning Commission, and they seem very excited about it.
I'm sure with no housing allocated for those additional employees.
No.
That's brutal.
Traffic.
This is brutal.
They did in that report say that they've got a 40% people that are not driving in single family or in single cars, but I don't know how true that is. Anyway, then I also attended a local policymaker group with high-speed rail and Caltrain. High-speed rail was the main presenter. They talked about their timelines and that they are going strong with getting their environmental impact reports and plans out to the public and for public comment. And that in a perfect world, maybe there will be high-speed rail by 2031. Caltrain talked about their ridership, and they are down 98% in ridership during this COVID pandemic. And they believe that they were working on their long-range business plan. They are now looking at a 10-year recovery plan because they believe it is very likely that Caltrain will need that 10-year to recover. They've got funding through August through the federal government. After August, they are not quite sure what they're going to be doing and how they're going to approach that. So Caltrain is definitely scaling back some of their projections for ridership over the next few years. And then I had an airport roundtable meeting. San Francisco airport traffic is down, I want to say 90%. They are starting to see a little bit of pickup in the flights, but they are expecting at least a 3-year recovery plan as far as before flights and transportation at the airport gets back to the pre-pandemic levels. So that's a big revenue and employer of San Mateo County, and they are promising to give financial and ridership updates to the cities so that cities can plan their transportation fund, TOT taxes and economic activities that's surrounded by the airport. That's the reports I have. That none of it is really good news. I think it's what we've all been dealing with the COVID issues.
I worked on Emergency Services Council. The library meetings were postponed, and I had my first committee meeting with Clay and our fire chief relative to fire safety standards in Brisbane and what we should be doing about that moving forward. That's it.
Thank you. So that brings us to other council communications. And these are items that council members may address, matters of city concern, not on the agenda, and not requiring council action at this time.
I have a couple, Madam Mayor. So let's see, I guess it was Monday. I took the COVID-19 test. It was very, very easy to sign up for it. I did it at the San Mateo County Expo Center. My appointment was at 9:45. By 9:50, I was done. So no waiting in line. The test is pretty easy to do. You do it yourself. They give you a little swab. You swirl it around in both nostrils. You put it into a little tube, close it up, put it in a bag, and then you drive out of the building. So you never leave your car. And then Supervisor Dave Pine invited me to a Zoom meeting with a couple of members of the Loma Prieta Sierra Club. And one of their main issues is, through dealing with COVID-19 is internet inequality. And so their main issue is that if we're going to be doing more work from home, if we're going to be studying from home, all the community colleges will be online, all the state colleges will be online. We need to be able to have greater access for all. And so hopefully the County Board of Supervisors takes up that issue and runs with it and working with various other government entities and businesses, of course, to provide greater access to high-speed internet. And maybe that's something that Clay, you can bring back to the council and provide an update on where we are and maybe potential opportunities to provide better internet access to our community. And then Saturday, I had a Zoom meeting that was hosted by Santa Clara County Supervisor Cindy Chavez. And she's been working with folks in the South Bay to look at how do we take sheltering in place, all the benefits from working from home. Granted, it's been difficult, but there have been some silver linings, like less traffic on our roads. Because there's less traffic, there are fewer accidents, and because less people are driving, there's been a great reduction in CO2 emissions. So how do we work with our business community? How do we work with local government to implement some kind of part-time work from home program? And I know, Clay, you've been thinking about that, strategizing with staff, and I don't know if you have an update now, but in sometime in the near future, it'd be great to provide that to the council and let us know how you're thinking about allowing some of our staff to be able to work from home on some days.
Sure. We can brief the council as we move forward. This has been a wonderful laboratory for figuring this out, because we've all been just kind of thrown into it and forced to make it work. So, and I think for the most part it has worked pretty well. But we are kind of working on our more formal policy, and some employees will be looking at that. So we'll bring that back to council in the near future.
Great, thanks. That's it, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, I have a...
Thank you, Councilmember Conway.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, this is for Ingrid. I know this November we got a major election coming up, and it's also 3 city council seats are up. And I think this is the first time that Brisbane council elections have aligned with the presidential election. So, but maybe Ingrid, you can tell a little bit like when this is all going to happen, when it's going to be announced for people who want to run for council and stuff like that, and what the timeline is. You have that, or when that will be?
Well, we're getting all the county clerks have been invited for a special meeting with the Department of Elections on Tuesday, and they'll have a better update for the council for the June 18th city council meeting. But basically, it is going to be a huge election, a huge undertaking for the Department of Elections, and they are in a really good position though because of the all-mail ballot model and the vote center model to tackle the elections for this coming November. One thing that we are looking into is the possibility of having a couple of curbside ballot drop boxes around the city, so voters don't have to enter City Hall in order to turn in their ballots. But I'll have a better update and better idea of what some of the some of the new policies and procedures coming up for the November 3 election.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because still require signatures and stuff like that, and if we're still in shelter in place or the how all that's going to work, it's going to be interesting on what we come up with, because I'm sure the county health officer has to be involved in this. So. Okay, thank you.
I have one thing. Madam Mayor, I don't know if it's too late, but I'd also like to close in memory of Kearney.
For who?
In memory of Corinne Yee.
Thank you.
We could amendment to our agenda for that.
Thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry, Madison, I missed that. Who was it?
Corinne Yee.
Oh.
Okay. And any other matters for discussion from council members?
I have nothing else.
Okay. That brings us to the city council meeting schedule. The city clerk's going to pull that one up.
We haven't proposed changes last time you saw this.
I'm sorry, I was talking over you there, so can you repeat what you said, Clay?
Sure. I said we had staff had not proposed any changes from the last time you saw this.
Okay, great, thank you. I think that works for all of our schedules right at the moment. And then we have written communications. So we had written correspondence received by the City Council between May 21st, 2020 and June 4th, 2020 from Peter from American Equipment Group regarding central utility plant machinery, from Dr. Terry Deloria from Jefferson Union High School District, update about graduation, from Terry Sandoval to show your support for the Stanford Hospital healthcare workers on social media, from Dr. Terry Deloria, again from Jefferson Union High School District, Superintendent regarding update about graduation, and again an update on graduation. Those were on 5/29/20 and 6/1/20. And then there was a letter received from the ACLU to the County of San Mateo and copied to myself, Mayor O'Connell, and other mayors in the county in regards to the curfew.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Could the clerk put the date for the letter, the ACLU letter, in the record?
Yeah, I believe that, for the record, I believe that was received yesterday on June 5th. But I will have the clerk put that into the record.
Yes, will do.
Thank you. And that brings us to oral communications number 2. Do we have any members of the public who would like to speak or have written on oral communications number 2?
I have not received any written communication or text messages, and there are no members of the public wishing to speak or do oral communications.
Thank you. And that brings us to our adjournment, and that we would like to close in memory of Corinne Yee and of Mr. George Floyd. And do I need a motion to do that?
So moved.
Second.
And a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Conway,
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lentz,
Aye.
and Mayor O'Connell.
Aye. Thank you all very much.